Here's a question from one of you. It says, have you talked about Hamas visiting Moscow, or was that just a rumor? I have talked about it, and no, it was not a rumor. I can personally confirm to you that that is real. I'm not going to tell you the source, but I spoke to a diplomatic source, and it's 100% real. Yeah, they were in Moscow, which is incredible because that came at a time, this visit by a Hamas delegation to Moscow it would already be quite significant in and of itself, but the timing of it was very special because you had Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, who had made these comments about Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, and the Oops, there we go. So the Israelis were furious, right? They were very furious, and they basically said that the Russians, are... sorry, I'm trying to turn this off so it doesn't interrupt us again. So what I was saying is the Israelis lost it. They were very furious, and they've been trying to walk a fine line because, remember, Israelis have a lot of strong ties with Ukraine and Russia. Many Israelis are actually Ukrainian Jews or Russian Jews. The Soviet Union was the first country to recognize Israel. So you have ties that go back, and I think every single Israeli prime minister to date was either themselves or their parents or their grandparents from Eastern Europe. You understand? So that is important context to have. And the Israelis refused to give the Iron Dome system, which is surface to air missiles which shoot down short-range rockets, and it's co-developed with the Americans. The Americans wanted to give it to the Ukrainians. The Israelis said no because they didn't want to anger the Russians. Now, you had this diplomatic spat going on, and right as Israel is condemning Russia, you have a Hamas delegation just showing up randomly in Moscow. I don't think that was as a result. I don't think the Russians timed it to be like, to give the finger to the Israelis. No, I don't think that's what happened. But it is very interesting. And I can tell you what they talked about. They discussed three main topics. So the first one was all these Israeli attacks on the holy sites. So you saw during the holy month of Ramadan, the Israelis were coming into Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is, for the Muslims, it's the third holiest site in Islam. They were also attacking, Christian worshippers, Muslim worshippers. There was a video, I don't know if we looked at it together, they were blocking a priest from going in. So they're basically putting obstacles and or attacking worshippers and holy sites. That's the first subject that they talked about. The second subject was the relationship between Russia and Hamas. Now, again, you will have some smart asses who say, but there is no Russian support for the Palestinian cause. Yeah, okay, but I'm telling you what they discussed, and that's it. It's not an opinion. I'm just telling you what they discussed. That doesn't change anything. So there you go. And the third thing that they talked about is Russia's relationship and support for the resistance axis. So when we say resistance axis, what are we talking about? This goes back to the days of George W. Bush, when he called Iraq and Syria and Iran and North Korea the axis of evil, right? Just ridiculous language. And David Frum, the guy who coined this term, who was Bush's speechwriter, is now a sweetheart with Democrats. So you see what we're talking about when we say all the neoconservatives are now with the Democratic Party? It's the same gang. In any case, the axis of evil was turned on its head, flipped on its head, and someone came up with axis of resistance. So that's what it means. It means the countries that are resisting U.S. imperialism, Zionism, and of course that includes Iran. It includes Lebanon, Hezbollah, Syria, Yemen, Iraq, Hashd al-Sha'bi, and of course Palestine, right? So these are the main countries in the axis of resistance. I don't know if you could say Venezuela and Cuba. I don't know. It's not like a formal club. There's not a form that you sign. But me personally, I would certainly consider Venezuela and Cuba part of the resistance. Absolutely. Because they're also victims of Western imperialism and they oppose it and so on. So that's the third topic that they discussed, right? And I think it's a very fine line, because the Russians, they are in Syria and have saved the country from being taken over by Al-Qaeda and all of these terrorists that were supported by NATO and the CIA. At the same time, Israel is bombing Syria almost every single week, right? Israel's occupying the Golan Heights in Syria since 1967. And since the war began in 2011, the Israelis are basically looking at what's happening in Syria and they're like, this is chaos. Let's take advantage and let's just go bomb Syria every week. And the excuse that they give is that, well, there are Iranian militias in Syria. There are Hezbollah militias or fighters in Syria. So that's their logic, right? Israel is defending itself from these very big, bad, meanie Iranians and Hezbollah fighters, which is weird, because Israel is the one occupying Syria. So if anyone's going to talk about self-defense, it's Syria. But that's their logic. And I don't see anybody, I don't see Joe Biden or Zelensky or, Emmanuel Macron complaining about the violation of Syria's sovereignty. It's okay to violate Syria's sovereignty. And of course, I haven't even mentioned the US that's occupying the oil and all of this, right? So that's the thing with Russia. They have a very kind of tough situation there, because they're supporting Syria and they also have ties with Israel. And Israel is going in every week, and the Russians, I'll tell you the real reason, because obviously Syria would like to respond, obviously. And it has Russian military support. But the logic here is that Syria should finish the main problem that it has right now. Basically should finish the war. The war is the biggest threat. And if Syria starts responding to the Israelis, that will start a bigger war. So that's something that I've heard, again, from a source. I'm not going to say who it is, but that's something I've heard from an official. And the other thing that proves to me that this is true is because a few months ago, again, I covered this on the channel, but the irony is they bomb Syria so often, I literally have no clue what month this was, but it's recently. This is what happened. Israel bombed Syria. Syria fired anti-aircraft missiles. And Israel came back to bomb Syria again for daring to defend itself. So do you see, that was like on a microscopic scale. So can you imagine on a larger scale what would happen? If Syria actually responded with full force, there would be another war inside this war, and that's a catastrophe. So it just doesn't work. It's just unrealistic. Even with Russian support, they just cannot do this. It just doesn't work right now. So unfortunately, this is the Israelis taking advantage of that. And my point here is that, again, the Russians, they're really kind of caught in the middle. And you could say the same about Palestine, right? I don't think anyone is. I don't think anyone is, kidding themselves here. Obviously, there is no Russian support for Palestine on the same level for Syria, obviously. Nevertheless, man, the world is really changing. I don't know what could happen in 2 months, in 5 months. Look at the situation that we are in right now. You have China and Venezuela and Iran and Russia trying to work on a common payment system. You have Russia demanding rubles for gas. It's crazy. The multipolar world that we're transitioning to is incredible. Who knows what the hell will happen? It's unpredictable. But yeah, again, I understand people who say, well, Russia doesn't even support the Palestinian cause because of many reasons, right? Again, for them, it's a fine line to walk on Syria, in terms of Syria, and in terms of Palestine, I think even more. This visit by the Hamas delegation, that's huge. It's not very often that you see that in the capital, right? That's very huge. So in any case, those are the three topics that they addressed, and I can confirm that to you 100%. And I can assure you that the Israelis were upset. I don't need a source to tell me that. They were probably losing their shit over that. That's extremely upsetting and embarrassing for them. Because they don't want Hamas to be given any recognition. For them, they want to portray Hamas as a terrorist group and vilify it. And that's why the Israeli lobby goes around all these European countries, Germany, the UK, and they pressure the politicians there to ban Hamas as a terrorist group. And the same thing with Hezbollah, right? By the way, Hamas is is a shortened. It means Harakat al-Muqawamah al-Islamiyya. So it means the Islamic resistance movement. Now, I want to say one thing, because they try to tell you that, oh, Hamas are just like these bunch of Muslim terrorists. You know, how they try to stereotype all Arabs. But what did I tell you just a few moments ago? The Hamas delegation that went to Moscow did not go there just to talk about the attacks against Muslims. They went there to talk about the Israeli attacks on Muslims, Palestinian Muslims, and Palestinian Christians. So this shows you again how you have something that I really like, which we have in Syria and in Palestine and in you know the Levant, in this region, that you have respect and love between all the religions and all the ethnic groups. And that's why you have a country like Syria, for example, with God knows how many ethnicities and religions. It's ridiculous. I can't even count them all. You know, Palestinians, Armenians, Bedouins, Kurds, Arabs, Syrians, Assyrians, Syriacs, Orthodox Armenians, Catholic Armenians. It's just ridiculous. It's too many to count. So that shows you something. Again, that how you have this very nice cohesion, and also it shows you how the propaganda is unfounded. Because, you know, again, like I'm half Syrian, Syrian Christian on my mother's side, and when I see them attacking the mosque, this makes my heart bleed, even though I'm not Muslim. It's the principle, you know. So we don't see each other based on religion or something like that. Like, you know, the most important thing is, you know, people are like brothers. You understand what I mean? They don't care what religion you are. This is irrelevant. No one cares. So that's a beautiful thing, right? I should maybe correct that. I don't say no one cares like they don't care in a disrespectful way. Like they appreciate the diversity. They appreciate all of this, right? I think that's maybe the best way to put it. So just a little parenthesis that I wanted to put in there. But yes, the visit is absolutely real. And I'm interested to see what happens next, because some people thought it's so crazy that it can't be real. Right? I had tons of people telling me like, oh no, this is fake. It's not. No, it's real. I can assure you it's real. If you don't want to take my word for it, even though I'm giving you this from a direct source and it's 100% true, go look at the Jerusalem Post. They've also reported the same thing, but they didn't tell you what I told you about the topics that were discussed. I didn't see anyone report that. So yeah.